So let me just first welcome each of you to Intentional Conversations, a virtual community chat. My name is Dr. Nika White, and we have been doing this for the past few months now, and it is one of the highlights of my week. I love holding space for people to come together to learn with and from each other, and today is not going to be any different. And so I want to start by just acknowledging my colleague, Elvia Pacheco Flores, who is assisting today. She's part of the Nika White consulting team. And we are a management consulting firm where we intersect the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion with leadership and business. So we work with all types of clients, private, public sector, to help them integrate into their business frameworks, strategic diversity, and intentional inclusion. So Elvia, if you want to take us to the next slide, I just want to get us right into our conversations today. I invite each of you to follow me online. I'm on all social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We start the conversation today, but we don't want it to end today. So certainly feel free to reach out and let's continue the dialogue. I also invite you, if you want to go to the next slide, Elvia, to visit my website, which is nikawhite.com. We produce a lot of content, and then our desire is to make sure that we are being resourceful for individuals who want to increase their leadership around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right now, it's so critically important for us to lead inclusively. And so I invite you to go to my website to learn about some of those courtesy opportunities from a resource perspective. I always like to give a head nod to who's coming up on the next week as our guest co-host. And I'm so excited because next week we're going to have Jared Carroll. Jared is a friend, he is an ally, and we all know, because we've been on these calls before, that a person should not be assigning the title ally to themselves. Someone else needs to assign that, and I can say with great conviction that he is an incredible ally. And I look forward to talking with him about white male allyship and the ways in which he is feeling called to be a resource during this time where we all are concerned about dismantling racism. And so we're going to talk about that. And he really has agreed to lean into his vulnerability. And I know this is going to be a great conversation. So you'll have to help me welcome my friend Jared. Registration is already open for that next week. And then go to the next slide. You all have heard me talk about for quite a number of months now. Minda was one of our guest co-hosts, Minda Hart. She is the author of the memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. And we've been doing a book club over the past couple weeks, and we have one more session left next Tuesday. It's been really rich, really deep. But if you have read the book, or perhaps you felt as though you didn't get a chance to register before, it is not too late. You certainly can join us this coming Tuesday, which is the last session, but we'll also make sure that you get recordings of the replays from the past 2 weeks discussions as well. So there's still time for that. Go to the next slide, Elvia. So let's jump right into intentional conversations. As Elvia transitions to the next slide, I just want to give a little bit of a high-level overview of why we do what we do in terms of these intentional conversations, virtual community chat. We are committed to optimizing this platform to make sure this time is meaningful for all of us. And so in order to do that, I'm going to ask that you partner with me throughout our time together today as we hold space for each other with a couple of agreements that are going to come on the slide next. And I want to walk through these really quickly. So you do not have to have your cameras on. Cameras are optional. I would love to see your smiling faces, but if you are more comfortable participating in an auditory capacity, then certainly we are glad to have you. If you're not speaking, we ask that you please remain on mute to avoid any background noise disruption. It helps us to be able to hear each other well as we're learning with and from each other. And this is all about community. So as I said before, we're certainly going to have opportunities where we will invite you to unmute yourself and to contribute to the conversations, to ask your questions, to maybe encourage someone else on the line. Whatever you feel led to do, we want to give you that chance throughout our hour together today. Although our topics from week to week will vary, the one thing that threads all of these conversations together is the intersection of diversity, equity, and inclusion, leadership, and business. And so today will not be any different in terms of dealing with all those topics. We do respect what's top of mind for all. Of course, we're continuing to navigate the complexity of COVID-19 while we're also in the midst of this racial injustice crisis, and we don't take that for granted at all. Our conversations, I'm sure, will gravitate there as what's top of mind for all of us, but we also want to acknowledge that today is a celebration. And I want us to go into this weekend feeling empowered, feeling hopeful. And so we're going to make sure that we end on a high note with that in mind. So this is a path to action through both application as well as sharing knowledge. But I want you to see this as a time for us to engage in dynamic knowledge. We want to help everyone that's part of this community to understand how to lead inclusively. That includes strategies for both personal and professional growth and development. I believe that we all can learn from each other. So definitely make sure you're leveraging the chat room for sharing resources, your contact information. Maybe you want to put your LinkedIn information in the chat for us. You can even ask your questions and introduce yourselves. Last, these sessions are being recorded and they will be shared this afternoon along with a transcript from the chat room. So that's why those resources are really important. So I want to go ahead and get us into my very excited friend who shares a portion of my name. So we have Kanika Tolver. She is here as our special guest, and we're going to bring her on in a minute just to greet you all. I'm so excited that she has made herself available for today. And but I want to give her a formal introduction. So Kanika Tolver is the CEO and founder of Career Rehab, LLC in Washington, D.C., where she helps clients transform their careers with coaching programs, events, webinars, and digital resources to help people reach their career goals. An in-demand coach, consultant, speaker, and thought leader, she has been featured on CNN, CNBC, CBS Radio, Yahoo, Black Enterprise, Glassdoor.com, Entrepreneur.com, The Washington Post, a variety of radio interviews and podcasts, and the list goes on and on. Kanika is the author of the acclaimed title, Career Rehab, Rebuild Your Personal Brand and Rethink the Way You Work. And I am reading this book right now, and it is phenomenal. So I cannot wait for us to talk about her book and the content in it. But she's also a woman in tech. And you can see from her picture, she is a woman of color in tech. And I say that because we know, all of us know right now, that getting people of color in tech is an ongoing struggle and battle. And it's top of mind for all of us. So I want to celebrate that aspect of what she brings and contributes to society as well. So we'll now stop sharing screen and we will bring Kanika on. And I want you just to give some initial remarks and welcome to this audience. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, so people are still kind of coming in and we will admit them as they do. So welcome. We appreciate all of you joining us. Again, welcome to our Zoom audience as well as those who are joining us Facebook Live. So we've given your credentials and your background, and we're going to delve into that a little bit further. But I always start with people sharing their story, their why. You know, it's one thing to know your credentials, your accolades, but I want to hear the story. I think there's such power in being able to connect with people if we know a little bit about their story. So Kanika, share your story with us. What's your journey?
So good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
All right. So my story is I grew up in Washington, D.C. I went to Bowie State University in the computer science department where I got my bachelor's degree. And then I went right into the federal government. So anybody knows about the D.C. area, a lot of people work for the federal government. That's kind of like our bread and butter. So I went and took this traditional career route, as my mom and auntie and everyone else did. And I found myself confused. And I said, you know, I need to really figure out what's the best fit for me. So I left federal government in 2014 and I took that leap of faith and I went into private sector and I went to go work for Fortune 500 companies like Deloitte and a lot of other tech companies. And I really found my niche and I found my groove. And that's where I kind of sparked the idea of career rehab, because that's where I found like, man, I can brand myself to the career that I really love instead of doing what other people thought I should do. Because working in the government is very safe. But at the same time, I had a very entrepreneurial spirit and a very innovative mindset, and I wasn't happy. And I was really, really sad every day when I was going to work. So that's when I kind of rebranded myself and I said, hey, you know, I'm going to check myself into career rehab and I am going to have the tech career that is for Kanika and not what other people think I should have.
No, I think that's great. And so let's talk about that tech career because, you know, we've talked about the fact that obviously you run a business as well. You're founder of a business, but then you're also working directly in tech. And so one of the things that I know is part of the reason there aren't as many people as there should be in tech is, first of all, a lot of times people of color aren't exposed to different career opportunities within that path. How did you identify that you wanted to go into tech? What was the impetus that allowed you to see it as something that was possible and that was placed into your consideration set?
As a child, back when we had like dial up, I was just infatuated with the internet. We had instant messenger, we had AOL instant messenger. That was before we had all these social media networks, and we could
Right.
DMs and we could direct message each other, and we could do all of these online chats. So back when we had like dial up and we had AOL email, that was like one of the very most popular email platforms that we had. I was just infatuated with, like, you could go on the internet and you could like search anything. I thought that was just fascinating to me. So my mom got me my first computer. This was back when the floppy drive was out. You had the floppy drive and things like that. So then I just started to get a passion for computers as a young girl. And then when I decided to go to college, I said, I think I want to go into understanding how to develop websites. I was just infatuated with web development and online marketing and the internet, and just how the internet worked and e-commerce. And that's when I decided that I really wanted to make a career in building applications and for different companies that I've worked for in the past, and now I still work in tech. So
No, that is great. That's great. So let's kind of stay in that vein, because one of the sidebar conversations we were having earlier today was about the fact that this audience sometimes is comprised of a number of aspiring entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs. And I work with a lot of small businesses. And one thing that I hear quite often is, as I am looking to transition full-time into entrepreneurship, I'm working full-time because I got to pay the bills, right? But how do you balance the two to ensure that you are working towards your goals and your dreams of entrepreneurship, while at the same time you are maintaining your responsibilities from a 9-to-5 perspective? And so you do that quite well. You have the balance down. And I think this audience could benefit from understanding how you do that. And what are your strategies and what are your recommendations to others?
Oh, awesome question. So one of the things that I recommend is having a mindset that you really want your business one day to not be a side hustle.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't look at my job as my side hustle.
Not your business, but your job.
Yes. So I'm always cheating on my job with my business and my passion. So that fuels me, and it drives me to make sure that I'm making time for brand development. So let's just start there. Like, building your brand is something that it evolves. It's an evolution. So I want you guys to think about making sure you are not overthinking it, and understand that you have to jump out there and you have to start building your brand and building your presence online. And logos and websites, those are just all things that describe your brand, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I think consistent execution is where you're going to thrive. So one thing that I want to encourage everyone is to, one, become a student of your business. Mm-hmm. The same way we were students in college, we got these fancy degrees and these fancy job titles. We have to become a student of our business. So I've studied career coaching and personal branding and being an author and a coach and a speaker. I've studied that to be able to, be in these, have these media platforms feature me, right? The second thing I think is important to do is to make sure that you, the things that you're not really good at, it's okay to outsource those things. So I personally use Fiverr for some things. I personally have used, outsourced and used small businesses to do things. I don't think you have to know everything about your business, but you need to know enough to manage it correctly. So when you're hiring people, you can really show that you can really explain your vision for what you want them to build, create, or manage.
No, I love that. You're speaking my language now, because those who know me, they know that I believe in the power of branding. I believe in personal branding. And so I love the fact that your book talks about this, and you alluded to it just a moment ago, the notion of be the brand and not the employee. And I think that oftentimes, even those who have desires to go into entrepreneurship, they don't see their 9-to-5, their W-2 job as a way to also build their brand. They almost separate the two. And I love the fact that your thought process is we need to intersect them, and not only intersect, but let the what we normally would think should be our priority, which is our 9-to-5, let that bigger vision and goal kind of take center. And that's hard to do for some people. So just talk a little bit more about how you were able to get the support of like your employer, because I know that you mentioned my employer knows what I do. They know that I have this going on. Because that can be a little bit of a conundrum for people. It can be tricky.
That can be tricky. I think, you know, because even my manager has says, you know, when we have summer interns, or even when I'm a project manager, so I manage teams. One thing I want to tell people is that it's important to understand what is transferable from the 9 to 5 that you can put into the business, right, and vice versa, right? So coaching and managing people is something that I do within my business, but it's also something that I do when I'm nurturing and building teams in tech to develop successful products, right? So I think it's important to understand what are the things that I am learning at work that I can apply to my business, whether that's writing presentations, whether that's marketing, whatever. I think sometimes we try to silo them, and we shouldn't. And that's where we go wrong, because we look at it as a side hustle, like, oh, it's just a daunting task. So it's very important to understand what's transferable between the job. I utilize the career to leverage the dream. I take training that's applicable to the things I need to do for my business, even though the employer may not know. Does that make sense? I'm strategically hustling the job to say, can I go to this writing class? Can I go to this coaching class? Can I go to this leadership class? Because ideally, I am trying to be a great leader in my business and for my career coaching clients. But at the same time, I'm maximizing using the things that I'm learning at work for the business.
No, I love that. I think there's something that a lot of us can glean from this conversation right now. So, okay, so your book is called Career Rehab. So I want to talk about the title. And then I want you to tell me, what is a rehab diagnosis and why is it important to have one?
So Career Rehab, I came up with the actual title because my first self-published book was Life Rehab. So I just was like, I needed to like get my life together in the first book. So then I decided to get my career together, because I always feel like sometimes your career is not together because your life isn't together. So the first self-published book was like just really getting myself together as a woman and finding myself. And once I found myself, I was like, now I know what I want to do with my career. So Career Rehab is really about gutting out the things that's bad in your career and filling it with the things that's good. I use the analogy a lot in the book, and is that sometimes we have homes that we gut out and we renovate so we can sell them and put them on the market. Sometimes we need to gut out the things that are not working well within our career so we can brand, market, and sell ourselves. And that requires us to rebuild. So I use the subtitle of rebuild because a lot of us already have amazing brands, amazing education, amazing experience, but we need to do some rebuilding upon that foundation. We need to do some, put some better layers up there so we can be seen and we can get the pay and the job that we deserve. And the last part of the subtitle is rethinking the way that we work. So I think this is really a career shift mindset book. It's really about us rethinking about the way that we work and not staying on jobs that's not treating us well. Get paid now, get the money, power, respect. Not overdosing on the job, but overdosing more on self-love and family time. So this is really about us shifting our mindset from putting all this energy into the job that we're not getting back from it, and putting more energy into building a personal brand that feels good for us.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you have this platform, and I've been following you for quite some time now. And I love the fact that you make yourself so accessible, particularly to people of color. Part of what we intersect in these conversations are the notions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we know that oftentimes, if you're a part of I don't want to say underrepresented, I'd rather say underestimated, group.
I like that.
There you go. That's credit to my friend, Jennifer Brown, who said that recently. And I thought, I love that. But if you're part of that minority group, then automatically there are these layers of difficulty that causes you to not feel confident and really bringing your whole self to that environment and showing up at your best. And so I think that as often as possible, as we can provide resources to help people think intently about their careers and to be strategic about their careers and even their entrepreneurship journeys, that's going to help us to be able to find our rightful place where we can walk confidently into those spaces. And so I appreciate that about you. So in your book, you talk about workplace forgiveness. And I love this story that you tell about how there's a white male that was really a key ally for you. And sometimes, especially now, I think that we hear a lot of the stories that aren't quite as positive. And I think there's a need, because I said it at the beginning, that I want to make sure that while we don't ignore what's happening right now, it's top of mind for all of us. I want us to kind of end on a high today. Some conversations before have been really, really heavy, Kanika, and I've walked away feeling like, gosh, that was so rich and useful. But, I need to pick me up now. So what I want to do today, of course, in the spirit of Juneteenth, I want to talk about that story. So share that story with us, because I think that so many people here are going to get value from understanding the perspective of being willing to lean into the notion of, do I forgive my workplace when I have been stained, or when something has occurred that has caused me to want to walk away? Or do I remain strategic and steadfast and see it as a stepping stone for something bigger?
So workplace forgiveness is something that I think, I just discovered it actually when I was going through a really bad, tough patch at my job. While I was writing the book for most of 2019, I started that job, and I was writing the book at the same time, and I was working under a white female manager who I felt like it caused me to get to a place where I was having workplace anxiety. I wasn't able to sleep at night. I felt like the way that she was managing me, it was bothersome. It was very aggressive. Sometimes things that were said were inappropriate. And I was new, so I'm like I'm on probation. So I'm just trying to, and I'm trying to write this amazing book, right? But at the same time, but at the same time, going through the things that I went through at work, it really poured into the pages, because I don't want people to feel the things that I went through. But I got to a place where I was constantly just not being able to sleep. I was going to a therapist. I was put on anxiety medication. I was put on sleep aids. I had got gastritis, and all of this happened in 2019. And I was crying out. So I said, I'm going to make an appointment. After I had got to the 12th month mark in the job, I said, I'm making an appointment with the EEO office. I said, because I need to explain to them some of the things that I'm going through. One situation happened where she brought in, we had cubicles, right? So in the government space, you get a cubicle based upon your tenure. You get a bigger cubicle, I should say, based upon your tenure. So she brought in people from the outside she brought in white males from the outside that had no federal government experience, and gave them these bigger cubicles where me and another African-American woman on the team, we had more tenure. I mean, I have 17 years of government service. The other young lady had a lot more time at this department. And we were just shocked that we didn't have an opportunity to be able to move into those cubicles. So we documented. She went to the union, I went to EEO. So I was crying out, and my new director came on board, who's a white male, and I was telling him about all these things that were going on. He was watching it from the sidelines, but he wasn't able to make that effective change until he got the director job to become her manager, because she was acting. So once he got the job, he had a conversation with me. He said, you know what? I've been seeing what you've been going through for the last 12 months, and it's affecting your health and it's affecting your overall performance. I know that you're amazing. I want to remove you from up under her, and I'm going to be your new manager. You're going to report directly to me. And after that, everything changed for the better. And what I'm trying to say is that even though recently her father died and she did some really bad things to me, I still reached out to send my condolences and my love and my compassion towards her, because my father died when I was 13. And that was easy for me because I had forgiven her.
Yeah.
Because God had already removed me from the situation. But at the same time, I wanted to show that I'm a Black woman, I'm educated. I'm not going to carry that malice in my heart or that pain in my heart. And when I see her, I'm going to speak. I'm going to be the same Kanika that I am, even when I'm not in pain.
Right, right. I love that story, Kanika. And the reason that I wanted you to share it is because, I mean, I think it's a great story. I think that many on this call can gain a lot of value from it. But two things, when we talk about workplace forgiveness, as I was reading that portion, two things came to mind for me. Not only was it incumbent upon you to feel like you needed to release yourself and forgive her and show, kindness to her, but the workplace forgiveness was so many people find themselves in a toxic situation, they immediately just leave without even communicating what the issues are. And then I always feel like, maybe you weren't in a position to carry that banner of I need to make this better, which is fine. Not everybody is wired for that. But I think about the people that then follow those individuals, right? What is that experience going to be like for them? And so I love the fact that you were vulnerable and willing to lean into that, your experience, and to share that with this new manager that you were getting, because then it allowed him to be able to be of support for you. And as we talk about allyships, one of the things I've been echoing is the importance of being very specific with the actions that we want others to take that are trying to ally on our behalf. Otherwise, if we just say support me and to check in, that, how do you deliver upon that exactly? We need to be very specific. And I love the fact that you have that relationship where things were able to turn around for you.
Yeah, and one thing I want to encourage people now, I'm in this new leadership, under this new leadership, what I've decided to do is I do weekly check-ins with him every Thursday for 30 minutes. Just to talk about where I'm at with my projects and the things that I'm managing, but also where I'm at with Kanika.
Right.
Because right now with COVID and being at home, we usually start the conversation off of what's going on, like, how are you doing? How's your family and things like that. So I think it's important that people really don't know what you're going through if you're not checking in.
Right. And checking in is so important right now too, especially for those that are part of the Black community. Just a simple check-in, that is so critical right now.
And then in addition to that, 2 weeks ago, my director's manager, which is the CIO, another white male, he sent an email and he said, if you guys want to talk about, I think since the George Floyd situation came out, they felt compelled to send an email. So he sent an email and he said, if you want to talk about COVID-19, if you want to talk about these unrest times, the global recession, I'm going to open up my calendar to have Skype meetings with anyone. So I signed up, and the first thing he said was, thank you, Kanika, for being so patient as we decided to remove you from that other manager. We appreciate your patience. We understand what you've been through. And me and him had a very candid and a very open conversation about racism at work. I said, as a Black woman in tech, how would you deal with if I came to you and said that I have dealt with racism at work? And he said, I would want you to report it immediately and I wouldn't tolerate it. So talking about racism and having an open conversation, being a Black female in tech and with a white man, and him knowing where I stand and he knows where I stand, was a very healthy gesture for me and for him.
No, that's great. And I'm so glad that you were willing to speak up. I often talk about how sharing stories, there's so much power in the narrative, right? It helps people to get proximate to the issues of the lived experiences. And I think that level of exposure is so important right now. It allows people to be much more empathetic, much more thoughtful, and just educated. Because I think that part of the problem is if you're in a position of privilege, you see that if something's not directly and personally impacting you, you don't necessarily see it as a problem or an issue.
Right.
Let's face it, these days when we're talking about DEI, the conversation is being brought into white supremacy, to privilege, to how do we dismantle this, institutionalized systemic racism. And it's not just the blatant things that we encounter, it's also the subtleties, everyday occurrences, like what you were experiencing, with the female manager that was, producing this toxicity that didn't allow you to thrive at your best. And so I think it's important to amplify that. So I want to shift a little bit, and I want to talk about the fact that you're in DC. And what was the vibe like when the Black Lives Matter Plaza came to life? I mean, I would have loved just to have been there. I remember I sent you a message on social media because we follow each other, and I was like, gosh, I would love to be there right now. What was the energy like?
The energy was amazing. We were one of the first cities to do it. I think other cities followed after that.
Yep.
it was just an amazing feeling. Like I work like a block away from the White House. So like I literally, have to walk there every day when I was going into the office. But the vibe is like, it made us respect our mayor more as a
Yes.
Black woman. Right now the courageous leaders are showing up, they're really showing up and they're sending messages. It was, we had protests where if you're from DC or you've been to DC, you know that we're known for go-go music. So we had protests where go-go bands were performing in the middle of, Black Lives Matter Plaza. You know, it's just like go-go. DC has this go-go thing. If you're familiar with Chuck Brown, that's kind of what we're known for. So everything that we do is kind of surrounded around go-go. So it turned into go-go parties, in the middle of Black Lives Matters Plaza. So it was just an amazing feeling. Sometimes I can't put it into words. I said, we have Mumbo Sauce, go-go music, and Black Lives Matter Plaza.
I love it. I love it. I think I share with you that my sister lives in DC. And so I can't wait to get back to visit her, just so I can go to Black Lives Matter Plaza. I mean, it's now like it's iconic now. I want to be able to go and take a picture, say that I stood right there. It is a proud moment for all of us, whether you live in DC or not. So I think that's just tremendous.
Yes.
So what actions do you feel called to right now in this moment based upon what's all going on?
I was telling my husband and telling my family members that, there's so many other ways that we can protest. Like, I don't think everyone has to feel compelled to show up and protest in person at marches. Right now, I feel compelled to continue to do the work that I was already doing, but to just take it up a notch. A lot of my career coaching clients are Black women. I feel compelled to help them understand how to navigate some of the challenges at work that we don't talk about. We talk about getting a job, we talk about getting paid, we talk about job interview skills, but I think more career coaches need to really talk more about anxiety, stress, depression right now. I mean, for me, it's in the book, but this is just something that I just feel like a lot of career coaches don't talk about, like what's going to affect people's mental state of minds and helping them navigate those challenges as they're in the job market search. Also talking about how to navigate racism at work is so important right now, because even though these things are happening with police brutality, people are still going back to work with another style of brutality from dealing with their managers. And now you're attacked through being remote. That's even harder. You can't read people. You don't know if people really, their intent is good or bad, because you can't physically see them. So helping to navigate the challenges of working remote and dealing with these types of problems in the midst of all of the other, worldly, problems that we're just going through with COVID and I think that's where I want to show up. Another thing I want to do is, the second thing I want to do is I want to show up more in me and being an entrepreneur contributor. I want to show up more in showcasing our story on entrepreneur.com. I want to use my platform to be our platform.
I love that. Thank you. I love that. It's similar to you're being success partners to a lot of us in that regard. And I appreciate that. And for those of you who recall the interview with Minda Hart, she refers to, LI, sponsors, mentors as success partners. And I know that the two of you are connected in a multitude of ways. And in fact, you speak about her story in your book as well.
Minda. Oh yeah, she's in.
So I want to talk a little bit about your secret sauce. And I don't want you to give all your secrets away, but I do want you to share at least a little bit to your level of your comfort, because the other night when we were doing the Tuesday night call with Minda about the book, the memo, one of the things that came up from a guest that I don't even know if she and I know each other, but your name came up multiple times, but one of which was somebody who was just singing your praises. She said that her life and her career completely changed when she fell under your counsel as a coach, as a mentor. And I mean, and the conversation went on for probably another 5 minutes or so, just about how great you are and how and how gifted you are at what you do. And Minda was, of course, echoing that as well. And so what is your secret sauce? What is your approach that allows you to be effective in helping people to show up at their best in terms of really thinking intently about what their dreams are from a career perspective and how to go after it?
I want to say thanks, Minda, and thanks for I'm not sure who the young lady was that mentioned me on the call.
I can't remember either.
I think I want to say thank you to you, you know, for even mentioning on this call. I don't know what my secret sauce. I think my secret sauce is that you know, I'm not like a lot of other career coaches. I really enjoy just pouring into people, and I enjoy doing it in a very authentic way. Like I just want it to feel good. I don't want it to feel like, you know, you can't, you know, share what you're going through within your career or life with me, because it really it holds us both back from having a really good relationship with what you want to do with your career and your life. My secret sauce would be, I would say, I just be me. I don't really like, if anybody follow me on Twitter, like sometimes I'm very vulnerable. Sometimes I'm really like whatever. So like for me, I just try to be myself. I try to always incorporate my 3 alter egos, which are in the book. That's what makes me really unique. Is I'm a cool geek. I really love to read. I really love to like read about technology and about business. That keeps me, you know, that keeps me having that competitive edge. I'm a corporate rebel, meaning that, you know, I fight with a cause in the workplace and within life. Like I go against the grain. I don't want people to feel like that I'm like very arrogant, but at the same time, when things are wrong, I want to fully call it out. And then I'm a career dropout, you know.
Yeah.
I have a business, and one day I'm going to be a full career. I'm like a half career dropout right now. I'm like halfway
I love
in,
that.
halfway
Career
out.
dropout.
Yeah, so that's my secret sauce, is being cool and being intellectual. Also, corporate rebel is being like, you know,
I'm gonna pause you right here for a second and ask that if you're not muted, please make sure you mute yourself. We're getting some background noise. Thank you. Go ahead, Kanika.
I'm sorry, I said, and I think those are my 3 alter egos: cool geek, smart, intellectual, corporate rebel, meaning like I'm gonna fight for what I believe in when things aren't right. I'm gonna call it out. And career dropout is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an innovative thinker, and I want to continue to thrive in entrepreneurship. So I would say that is my little recipe.
Yeah, so you have to get the book to read about all those different dimensions that Kanika just talked about, and it's definitely worth your
I
while.
don't really like bragging on myself, so I don't really know. That is my recipe, I guess.
No, that's your secret sauce. When you were saying, I don't know really what it is, I'm thinking to myself, it's you, it's you. It's almost like when people say, you know, oh, you're going to write another book or you're going to talk about this, and it's like, well, should I do it? It's already out there. No, but they haven't heard from you, and I think that's what it is that you bring all of you to that situation, and just happens to work incredibly well because you've been on that journey where you've experienced probably a lot of the situations that the people are in that you're helping, right? And so I think all of that counts for a lot. So I appreciate that. And then you also network like a hustler, right?
Oh yeah, so I just want to give everyone a few tips about networking like a hustler. Like that will save your career. Like if you really understand how to do that, but understanding how to do it online now is so important. So you guys got to maximize doing it online. So coming to these type of calls on a weekly basis or monthly basis is important. This is how you meet the experts. This is how you meet the authors, the speakers, and other people that are participating. Showing up on LinkedIn in a major way will change your career forever. For those that don't know, LinkedIn is the plug. And another thing is also making sure that you attend virtual career fairs. You know, now the career fairs have shifted. This is not an opportunity to still not understand how companies are hiring, and ask people to refer you into the hiring system if you're looking for a job. This is the time to really ask for people that already work at the company that you want to work at to refer you in. We have to be vulnerable right now to ask for help.
That's so true. And so many people have been displaced because of COVID. And so I know that the market right now in terms of unemployment is really high. It also means that there's greater competition out there. So we have to bring our A game. And so I know that I'm sure your services and your counsel to people has been invaluable. And so, you know, before I open it up for the audience to address their questions or just to contribute to the conversation in general, are there any tips right now that you would like to share for those who may be in the job market or looking to transition, knowing that the complexity of it is can be quite difficult?
Yeah, I can share tips. The first thing I want you guys to do is to really sit down and get a journal. I talk about this in the book, is that sometimes we've done so many amazing things in our career and in our current role that we have not been keeping track of our performance metrics. So sit down, you go to Marshall's, TJ Maxx, Amazon, order a journal. I have a journal here that I use, and sometimes I get the ones with no lines where they're just blank, and I just sketch out what I want my career to look like and what have I accomplished in past roles and my current roles. Before we just go into updating our resumes and our LinkedIn profiles and the job board sites, we really need to document and sketch out and I like to call it, like, just put your ideas out there on what you want for your next role or your next job or your next promotion. Put that down on paper and then align that with some of the things that you've already done. You may have, you have soft skills, you have technical skills, you have leadership skills. You need to break those things down into 3 categories and align it with the job vacancy announcement before you just go out there blindly applying.
Right, really good tips. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kanika. So I'm sure I've been so enthralled in the conversation because I wanted to be present for the conversation. I haven't been paying close attention to the chat, but I know that my colleague Elvia has. So Elvia, what's going on in the chat? Would you like to unmute yourself and share maybe some of the chatter there? And then we'll also invite anyone who's interested in coming off of mute to join the conversation live.
So everyone is pretty much just, reinforcing and sharing what Kanika has been sharing, all the awesome tips, Kanika, that you've been sharing with everyone on the chat. There was a question earlier while you were having the conversation from Kiana, and she was asking how does someone find some solace and peace within?
Oh, yeah. Part of that self-care. School us all. I want to know too, especially during these times.
I need some of that myself, but finding that peace is really getting to a place of, I think we need to, there's a lot of noise out here in social media and in the world. And I really think sometimes we need to shut our phones down. We need to even sometimes it's kind of emotional for me to get on, Instagram and Twitter all day and seeing all of the non-peaceful things that are happening. So I think it's important for right now for us to step away and take that time to really, really meditate, pray, exercise. Taking walks by yourself, it has been really helping me, but I think sometimes it's okay to have 1 or 2 days out the week where you say it's no social media day.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely done that of late. Yeah, self-care right now is so critical. That's great. I love that. Okay, are there any other questions? Would someone like to unmute and come and join the conversation with either, again, a statement or a question for Kanika?
Yes. Hey, Nika.
Go ahead, Ken. Hi.
Go ahead.
We'll do Angel, then we'll come to you, Ken.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ken. I just have a quick question for you, Kanika. When you went to the EEOC, what was that experience like? I actually have an appointment to go myself. And so I've never filed a complaint. I'm very nervous about it. What was it like and what was the outcome?
Good question. I was very nervous to do it too. So since they moved me, we didn't go forth with official filing of complaints. So I want to kind of walk you guys through, I'm not an EEO expert, but what I got from the counselor, I had an initial meeting with the counselor, and she said that the first step is mediation. That's usually the first step. The first step is that they will try to mediate the situation between you and the person that you're having the problem with. Or you can say, I've taken this for too long. It's been 2 years, 3 years that I've been dealing with this. You can say, you can opt out of doing mediation. And that's when they usually sit down with you and the other person and they try to talk the problem through. If you don't want to do that, then you can go ahead and go with filing a actual official formal complaint. But the process, the only thing I have my issue with EEO is that the process is very long. It could take 2 to 3 years for your complaint to turn into an investigation to actually, it's proven that it is, because, people can file a complaint against race, sex, against so many things. EEO falls into, it's not just about, oh, she's white and I was black. It can fall under so many, it can be age, so I think it's important that that I would advise you to do is to really make sure that your complaint really falls into those categories and have your documentation when you go into that meeting, right? Because some things that look like racism isn't always racism sometimes. We just didn't have that full, and that's where mediation sometimes can come through it, and he or she can say, you know, Kanika, I didn't even really mean it like that, but since you took it like that, let me explain why I did what I did. But because the director removed me from under her, EEO felt like it was a resolved issue, so they didn't even go forth with the formal complaint.
Got you. Thank you.
Hopefully that helped. I'm sorry.
It did. It did.
Ken, you're up next.
Hey, thank you. And Nika, first off, this is the third forum I've been to, and they've all been fantastic. So
Oh, great. Thank
one
you.
of them, I learned more, and as I mentioned, have enjoyed them. Kanika, thank you for the background, your personal story. The side hustle is really your hustle with opportunity, and it sounds like you've created opportunity on both sides where both organizations get to benefit. But what I did want to mention is that I hadn't actually hit send on the message because I wanted to have a quick shout out to Lady Liberty today for yesterday's opinion that came out on our brothers and sisters, the DACA students, or really they're not students anymore.
Absolutely.
In DACA. So
Yes.
Shout out, and more importantly, you look at that group there, and that's led by the great female leadership on our court. So
Huge win.
Shout out to Lady Justice, and certainly making the world a little bit better of a place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ken. So important. Thank you so much for amplifying that.
Nice meeting you, Ken.
So there's actually a couple of questions in the chat relative to LinkedIn, because you mentioned it before as something that we all should have a presence on. And so I'm seeing two questions. Let's see. Jasmine, would you like to unmute and ask your question directly? And then there was another one that I saw that was very specific to LinkedIn as well. I'll try to find it. Is Jasmine still on?
Nika,
Yeah, I just lost where I wrote the question and I'm outdoors, so it sounds...
I see it. Would you like for me to read it for you, Jasmine? It's not
Sure,
a problem. Okay. I am in the process of rebranding myself. I find that on LinkedIn, compared to other social media, I need to portray myself differently, more so as it's a professional medium and or the audience is different. How true is that thought?
Very true. Very true. So I would say you all, for those that don't understand, the same way that I talk on Twitter, I wouldn't necessarily talk on LinkedIn, only because my audience is a little bit different. And I feel like for me, I want to still represent me being a woman in tech, and I want my professional background and my experience and my knowledge to shine through my profile. So one, having a very professional photo is important. Number two, making sure that when people scroll down into your profile, people can really get the highlights of who you really are at the top of the profile, because everyone's not going to read the entire profile. And number three, making sure that you're telling the story of your professional experience throughout your profile, and all those keywords within your industry and your field, those buzzwords are shining through your profile. So hiring managers and leaders and recruiters can easily find you in the search results. But yes, I have a more professional tone on LinkedIn. And when I'm on Facebook with my family and friends, I'm just being Kanika, right? When I'm on Twitter, it's still filtered a little bit on Twitter because of who I work for. So I still have to be very strategic in my communication, I should say.
No, that's good. And then another question that was related to it, Valerie submitted, Valerine, I believe is how you pronounce it. But she wants to know, what are some resources for people that want to get a bit more proficient in how to use LinkedIn in terms of creating their profiles?
Oh, great question. There are a lot of great online courses right on udemy.com on how to, brand yourself on LinkedIn. Another thing is there's a lot of great LinkedIn books that already exist out there that you guys can buy, where there's other coaches and career coaches and other branding authors that have wrote about how to develop a great LinkedIn profile. You can do books. And the next thing you can do is you can find a career coach that can specifically help you with LinkedIn branding. For me, what I did was I did a lot of YouTube videos. I did a lot of books, and then I just tested and assessed. I think with anything of a business or even with your career, you have to continually to modify it and test it and see what type of insights you get and clicks you get on your profile based upon your rebranding. And that will tell you what's working and what's not working.
That's really good. Would anyone else like to unmute right now and contribute to the conversation or ask Kanika a question? Feel free to unmute.
Hey, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, no, you're good. Hi, Eric, good to see you.
So, hey, I'm Eric Graben. I am a 55-year-old partner at one of the law firms in town. And Kanika, I wanted to ask, if you were employed by my firm, what would you most want me to do to support you?
If I was
back you up.
If I was employed by your firm?
Yeah.
I would want you to support me in a way to, far as me being working up under you and you're my leader.
Yeah. Or just say you're a partner. Maybe if you're not working up under me, I'm a deal lawyer. Maybe you're a litigation associate, or maybe we hire you to be our IT person. Or you're just a colleague in the firm. What would you most like me to do to support you?
The most important thing I would want you to do is to one, get to know me. Mm-hmm. Like first let's foster and develop a relationship to get to know one another. Because I think sometimes we are asking for people to have level of support that we haven't fostered and developed relationships with. So for one, I want you to get to know me and for us to have a very transparent and engaging conversation about who I am. Next thing I would want you to do is to support me when you see something's going wrong and someone's doing something that you feel like is inappropriate. I wouldn't want you to just not address it. I want you to address it right away. Because I think for so long, especially Black women, we've dealt with so much and people turn their head and they don't really actually step up and say this is wrong right away. And we have gotten to a place where we've been conditioned to just deal with that. So I think it's important that when you see something's wrong, just straight disrespect, if someone's disrespecting me or there's something wrong that's not being fair, I would want you to definitely, even as a colleague, even as a peer in the workplace, or even as a leader, to step up and do the right thing and stand up for what's right at that time. Because I think so often we don't have anyone to do that for us in at work or just in business or in partnerships when it comes to working with men.
Mm-hmm.
No, so let me chime in here just to say you're getting lots of love, Eric, in the chat room, just for simply asking the question. I think that it's so refreshing because, as a person of color myself, and as Kanika was sharing, right now with all that's going on, it has become even more apparent the need for white men to leverage their privilege and their power and their influence to help create opportunities that are equitable for people that look like me to be able to thrive effectively in the workplace. And it begins with being willing to listen, to ask questions, to learn and self-educate. And so I just thank you on behalf of this entire community, and hopefully you can see some of the other positive responses that are happening in the chat.
That's why I said get to know me and get to understand what I go through. Having that relationship and having that conversation, that communication back and forth initially is like we have to educate each other by building relationships with each other and then calling out things right away when we feel like it's not right.
No, that's awesome. Yeah.
I have a friend who was a partner at a large law firm in Columbia, and she left. And I remember one of the things she told me is, even though she was a partner, very accomplished, none of the other white partners, particularly the white male partners, ever just, talk to her. Yeah. Nobody said, hey, can we go get a drink and talk? Can we go out to lunch? She left and started her own firm, and has been very successful. But I thought, that's awful that, their view of her is she's just a kind of a professional technical functionary.
Yeah.
And not a person that they would, relate to.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the experience of a lot of people of color within, the workplace. The other thing is oftentimes their experiences, if they are given the opportunity and are willing to lean into their vulnerabilities to share their lived experience, their experiences aren't believed. And if your experiences aren't believed, then it's hard for you to even find the wherewithal to want to try to change what their experience is. And so it's a vicious cycle that can continue. So again, I think that what you've done in this conversation is just brought to the forefront the need for white male allies to pay close attention, to ask these questions, to get engaged in these types of discussions. So I really do appreciate that. So I am watching the time right now, and I do have a hard break today at 12 o'clock, but I'm so glad that my colleague, Elvia Pacheco Flores, is going to take us through the end of this hour. I just want to extend a very heartfelt appreciation, my gratitude to you, Kanika, for sharing with my audience today, for all that you do to help just people emerge stronger and better. The fact that you accepted my invite makes me feel seen, valued, and heard, and I just thank you for that. And so I'm going to step away, but Elvia is going to take over. We're going to make sure that we get you to share your parting remarks with us.
Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. So thank you so much, Elvia. Take over now. You all have a great weekend. And again, celebrate June 10th incredibly well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nika. So let's continue with all this great positive excitement that we see on the chat board. Again, Eric, thank you so much. That was phenomenal. That's the way to start. And we all appreciate that. We still have room for, I'm sorry.
Hey, Elvia, this is Ken. I was going to jump in, and if we were going to continue that conversation, and Eric, I was just getting ready to put a chat up for you, but I'll go ahead and send it after. The reality of what we're talking about and the question you asked is inclusion versus diversity, right? And that is really where the rubber hits the road, and it enables an individual to have trust in their peers. And I know in a lot of attorney groups, there are rankings based on the years of service and partners. In the concept of what we're trying to create now as a society is really trust, where there's a level-lessness even by title. And so in that framework, and you move through the 5 C's of trust, and the last one is caring, is the individual, and really what was being talked about was the ability to care for that individual and have them know that you have their back. And that starts with the inclusive part of where you were trying to go with that conversation on the lunch piece. And it's very easy to go to lunch with everyone that's similar to you, but that's where we have to break the mold and start doing that. So I happen to know a bit about it from just environments and behaviors and controlling the conditions that allow for creating trust, but it really comes down to that piece. So thank you for giving me a couple of minutes on that.
Thank you so much, Ken, for sharing. And guys, we are at the top of the hour. I do want to allow Kanika Tolver the opportunity to give some parting words, and we really appreciate everyone's time. So Kanika, your turn.
All right, I want to say thank you guys for attending this session. I really appreciate you guys' support. I really want you guys to take this opportunity right now during these really, really tough times to figure out ways to turn your anxiety into accomplishments for your business and for your career. I want you to feel what's going on. But I also want you guys to find opportunities to, have some self-care, but also have an opportunity to, if you want to rebrand yourself or you want to brand your career, take this opportunity to develop the business that you've always dreamed of. Take this time to, rewrite that resume or that LinkedIn profile and start applying to jobs. We can do so much during this time that we're at home. We can take our careers and our businesses back, and we can have the amazing job that we wanted, and we can have the amazing business that we always wanted. And I just want to say thank you again for having me here. And I hope you guys can support Career Rehab and purchase it on Amazon. And let's continue to support each other during these times. And let's continue to love up on each other right now. That's all that I had. If you guys want to reach out to me, you guys can reach out to me through kanikatolver.com. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Kanika Tolver. And I look forward to hearing from you guys, and maybe we can, talk to each other on social media later.
Once again, thank you so much, Kanika. And there you guys have it. She's made an open invitation to reach out to her.
Yes.
This is the time. This is the time to take advantage to work on your brand. And don't forget, the next intentional inclusion conversation will be next Friday with Jared Carroll. Everyone have a great day.
Have a good weekend.
To all.